Hello and welcome to a special edition of Sailing Fair Isle. This one is a technical special on all the bits about Kraken that we didn't put in the episodes. We try not to make those too geeky, but do have a look if you haven't seen them already, because in episode 65 we show an interior look round a Kraken 50, and episode 66 we go out sailing in one, so you definitely want to have a look at those. And while you're there as well, have a look at the video we made before on choosing a boat for cruising as well, because this is sort of a continuation of that in many ways. But let's get on with it, lots to pack in. So we're going to start with the inspiration behind Kraken, Dick Beaumont.
There's no such thing as one boat for all purposes. No. And my specific focus was to say, okay, what we're going to build is, well, cruising boats. We're going to build boats because that's what I've always done, you know. And that's what we're going to build. And once you know what you're going to build, actually it becomes quite easy. Because everything is, okay, for this purpose that doesn't work, and for this purpose that doesn't work. And I'm certainly not advocating that everybody needs a Kraken yacht or everybody even needs an integral keel. I'm not advocating that at all, because if you're going to keep a boat generally in a marina, and you're going to go on holidays, and you're going to have maybe a month dodging around the Greek islands, yeah, you might want a boat with those safety features, but you don't need one. It's only really when you get out there and the weather's serious and it's a long crossing, and the thought of, well, what the hell would happen now if the keel come off, or actually, and because that's not all of it, it's the rudder as well, and then it's also the hull layout, because I think there are three absolutely critical things that if the boat doesn't have all of these three things, it shouldn't even be considered. And it is a well laid up and heavily laid up hull. It's a keel that can't come off, so it's an integral keel, and it's a fully skegged rudder, or it's a long keel, and a keel hung rudder.
So this is what Kraken are making. A heavily laid up hull, strong enough to be completely self-supporting. It doesn't rely on any internal bulkheads for strength. It has an ingenious integral keel in the form of a lead bulb that's bonded into a cavity in the keel and then glassed in completely to become part of it. This keeps the ballast weight low and allows the keel itself to have a proper shape to help with lift and stop vortexing. This all helps to reduce leeway. It's a genesis from these boats. Dick hasn't gone the whole hog with a full keel, but has opted for a modern version of the long keel with a fully skegged rudder. It's immensely strong on the Kraken with stainless steel struts built into the hull. These designs were considered to be the best offshore boats for decades, but they're expensive to make and find it difficult to compete with the sort of internal space, massive cockpits, swim platforms, dinghy garages, and all the rest of the things that modern designers think boat owners want. So most of these old classics are no longer in production, and some are fading into line with large-scale manufacturers to stay in business. There are a few designers still clinging on to some of the old values. Someone reminded me of Outbounds last week, which are a good strong boat, despite the spade rudder. If you've been following from the start, you'll know that Kraken started out because Dick couldn't find a new boat that fitted his criteria. So he decided to build his own. Kraken number 1, White Dragon. He's been honing the design ever since and has a good young and loyal team around him. Meet the head of design, Filip.
Because I was so fortunate to be able to start from the very beginning of myself, but also from the very beginning of the company. You can really see where you need to put the emphasis on. You can really see what needs to be improved, what you can copy from others, what you have to innovate on. So I mean, the big thing for boat design is you don't really invent everything. I mean, I think
You're
reinventing. So the thing is, there are certain industries where what you do is always new. I mean, aerospace, for example, but for nautical, a lot of what we are trying to do has been done 100, 200, 300 years ago, but differently.
And you're right, and some of that maybe has been lost with modern production boats. So what did you think when you got this job? You come in at Kraken, they're doing things differently. What was your first impression?
Obviously, the first one was wow. Big things going on. It was extremely exciting. It was a big challenge in the sense that Dick is an extremely experienced sailor, but he is a sailor. He's not a structural engineer, he's not a yacht naval architect. So he has great ideas for how it needs to work, and now he brings in guys who have to do it.
So he can say to you, I want the boat to do this, make it happen.
Pretty much. We take the ideas that Dick has from his sailing experience, and I come in that respect, it was very good for me to come in fresh, because I wasn't set in a way. No, if I went and worked for a different company which has already embraced what was then a cutting edge technology and gone that way, and they optimized production for that, and they optimized the whole design for a certain approach, if then the guy comes along and says, I've got this great idea, they go, yeah, it's pretty good, it could be quite good, but actually I've got already 4 production lines done completely differently, and it just doesn't make sense from a business perspective, but also it doesn't make sense because I have to all but restart certain aspects of your company, and that is almost starting fresh.
The company has grown and has just moved to a new yard in Bodrum, Turkey, which gives them the space they need and the ability to be in full control of the manufacturing process without relying on outside contractors. We'll have more from Filip later, but first let's have a look at some of the technical innovations on the latest Kraken, Skymark, with Dick. Now, Dick, I'm really interested in your lithium batteries because it's something that I've just done, fitted them, but I've read your spec and you've got the gold standard, haven't you? In that you've got...
I think we have.
You've got BMSs that are talking to all the charge controllers and stuff.
Yeah.
Which, I suppose, that's the way to do it, isn't it, when you're doing stuff from scratch?
Yeah, and of course, that's... if you've got the opportunity to go digital switching combined with lithium batteries, you wind up with the best because you've eliminated a lot of the standard cabling systems that go right around the boat, and you've therefore reduced all the connections. But lithium batteries, it won't be long before all boats are standard on lithium batteries.
Certainly all cruising boats. It just makes sense not to, isn't it? And massive wires on this as well. So it's a 12-volt system, is it?
Yeah, it's a 24-volt system.
24 volts.
It's a 24 and
24 volt, and you've got... I don't even know what size that is. It's got to be sort of 4.0, isn't it? 0000 gauge or something. We've got 00 gauge, and it's thinner than that one. Yeah. I've never seen anything quite like that.
Ultra heavy duty to allow full speed control without any restrictions and developing any heat. And obviously it costs more money to do that, but it's the way to go, really. And you've got a chance to do it absolutely right.
And it's all touch control, is it, from up here?
I can show you. It depends what you want to have a look at. Let's have a look at systems. You want to have a look at, probably that's a good one to show everybody. All the fluids. So you've got the running tank, port tank. There's 3 fuel tanks in a Kraken, and then lights, and you can see the whole boat is configurable.
Yeah, all really controllable. You've got to ask the question though. What if it goes wrong? Are you completely stuck?
Yeah, no, it's fully backed up with physical manual switches as well. So, but circuit breakers, as you would have in any ordinary boat that doesn't have this.
There's a switch panel in the engine room, and Dick has come up with an ingenious way of getting in there.
This 004, we developed a different access, and we wanted to change this area to make bigger access here. So,
oh, that's cool.
That slides out the way.
So you've got a little,
and you've got now a walkway through. This comes out here, and then fits in there. Yeah. And then even somebody of my stature can get in here quite easily. And this is, we're really now talking Kraken. You've got full access to your chargers. You've got easy access, as you can see, to changing your filters. There's a drip tray underneath them, because you won't open one of these without dripping. And there's a drip tray there. This is your big membrane here. And of course at the top is the water maker itself. In this particular boat, you've got this centralised chilled water system, and so all of the aircon is here. And that is the big manifold that you're seeing over there that transfers chilled water all around the boat. And the benefit of that is you've got access to be able to service it much more easily here, but you've reduced some vibration, removed some vibration of the aircon units themselves, and increased the storage in the cabins. And then down here is the fuel polishing system, And the fuel polishing system is again a pretty special Kraken thing. The concept is that there's 3 tanks, what we consider 2 storage tanks, port and starboard, they're your storage tanks. And in the centre is a running tank, and the running tank cannot receive fuel other than from the port or the starboard tank. And that means it all has to have gone through this large Raycor filter here, and you know it's clean. Then when it's got there, even then, because of biodiesel, it doesn't necessarily, because we've just got more water in it, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't possibly get a diesel bug. But when it comes from the tank that it's gone to, it then comes back through these Raycor filters, the dual Raycor filters that you can change over, glass bowls. And now you've got first filter, second level of filtration, and of course you've got engine filtration as well.
Yes.
And although you are going to change the engine filter when you do a service, I can guarantee you wouldn't need to change the engine filter for 5 years in reality. But you're going to do that anyway.
Of course.
Access totally key here. This this little tray on the top, that's completely removable. So we've taken the tray off the top. Now you've got access to all of your service parts. And of course you've got access down through here to your steering gear. The steps lift up
away.
fully. And there's an access panel. And there are no service parts on the other side of the engine.
Ah, really?
And what is also different about a Kraken is that the autopilot system is in here. It's not the traditional place to have it is in the back locker, and people will call it a mooing cow because there was this. But that's all gone because the drive system is in here. What's particularly important about that drive system, not only is it reduced the sound, but of course it's in a very dry environment, which no matter how hard you try, the stern lazarette is not. And you know, everybody hates autopilot failure, especially when you've got an ocean across and you're short-handed.
So some of the special things on the Kraken come from Dick's experience driving the engineering, and some are pure modern technical advances.
But the thing that I want to ask you about is this, because you know the genesis of my boat, which has got tiny little portholes with toughened glass, because that's in those days all
absolutely
we could do it. And you managed to get this. How is that strong enough to be safe?
This is where technology can give extra benefits to the whole principle of blue water sailing without increasing the risk. In fact, improving the safety. Because this screen is a laminated screen, and in the centre of it is a 3M security film, and you can crack it. You can't go through it.
So if one of your poles here comes adrift and whacks end on into there,
you can't go through it. You can go online and watch guys laying into it with sledgehammers, and you can't get through it.
I did check, he wasn't wrong.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I know looking at your details, you've got the twin crash bulkheads in here, new waterproof bulkheads. Where are they?
Let's show you. So this is the anchor locker. And if you look in down there, that's the first. That's the first completely waterproof crash bulkhead. But what's also interesting is below the floor of the anchor locker, right down to the stem in this whole triangle, right down to the stem, which takes you about 12 inches below the water, it's solid. I mean, I don't mean it's just fairly solidly made. It's actually solid, because that's where you're going to hit stuff. And you're going to hit it at the waterline. So the first crash bulkhead is here. And then, because we spend our life paranoid about safety, the second crash bulkhead is there.
Yeah.
Behind, showing this monstrous forward lazarette.
Yeah, it's great.
If you do need to get in here at sea,
Yeah.
you don't have to open the whole locker.
That's a really good idea. And the struts as well. It's a good idea.
And the struts, and if
Hold
you
it in
look
place.
here, you can see we don't do flimsy.
Yeah, yeah. Proper lockdown, yeah, that's great.
And this deck, when you're in heavy weather, is going to be at that angle, and it's going to be wet and it's going to be slippery. And there's two elements to this. First, you must be able to give your foot a safe space to lock into, and also Kraken safety rails are not standard CE and nothing more. They come. That's the height of a C for CE.
Yeah, is it
which
really
is
that low?
Just nicely placed at the back of your knee.
Yeah, yeah.
But what we want to be able to do is brace yourself on that. Obviously, you've got jack lines as well that you can clip onto. Yeah. But it's all about foredeck safety.
Yeah. So I know, as well as the bulkheads up forward, there's one here as well. What's the idea of that?
Basically paranoia.
Yeah.
You know, where are the potential ingresses of water? And although we have an alpha rudder system that has 3 bearings, and you'll see in a second a battleship size rudder post, nonetheless, it's a possible place that water could come in, and it's sealed. It can't sink the boat. You could cut this stern of, I'm not suggesting you would, but you can cut the stern of the boat off, and same at the bow.
Okay, and I suppose this is where the emergency rudder goes through then, is it?
That's the emergency tiller that goes on here. Shall I open that and show you?
Let's have a look, I'll do this one.
Thanks.
There we go.
It's good.
Ah, yeah.
What you'll see on it's common to see, because obviously it's cheaper, is to have a great big lazarette door here.
Yeah.
But when it's raining and there's waves about, that's not really a greatest plan. So you've got individual lockers here. And what you've got here is we've properly addressed the emergency tiller deployment, and the little disc that you see here, you undo that with a winch, you drop a socket on, and it is within 2 minutes you have an emergency tiller, and you're back out of trouble.
It's really important, isn't it? Because quite often I know that's buried back here, and you just have a load of old stuff on top of it, and when you need it, you can't get it. You can't get the tiller.
Steve, that was another little note in the book. The other thing that is really, really worth mentioning is the Alpha Rudder is the only rudder system in boating today. You can take the bottom bearing out from the top, and you can lift that out and service it. Obviously you do that when you can, in a marina or in an anchorage or whatever, but you don't have to haul out. One of the things I've found as I've gone, especially off grid, is I can easily have, and I have gone 3 or 4 years without anywhere that I could haul out.
And that's a very good point, and it's actually the reason that Dick gives for not wanting a boat on keel on a Kraken. Now, there's good and bad examples of boats on keels. It can be done really well, but with all of them, it requires some sort of maintenance. Now, I'd need to do a whole video on just a touch on this, because there's a difference depending on whether you've got stainless boats or steel boats or bronze bolts, and how you check them. When you get it out in the strops, you'll let it hang there so that the weight of the keel is down and any gaps might open up. You can lift bolts on occasions, just draw them out and check them, all those sorts of things. But all of that requires the boat to be out of the water. And there is this difference between just weekend sailing, where that can happen very easily, and actually sailing, and certainly if you're sailing off grid, places where you might not be able to do that easily. And if you do have a grounding and you're worried about it, then that's not a position that you want to be in. Now, I have had actually people comment saying, well, if you're a good seaman, you're not going to ground a boat, and I've had a boat for 20 years and never touched bottom. Well, I think maybe, there might be some fibbing going on there, but even if there isn't, there is a difference between sailing in waters that you sail in every weekend, if that's what you're doing. You go to the same marinas, the same bays, you know all the hazards that are there. When you come out cruising full time, you go to somewhere new every day, different countries, places where maybe the charting isn't so good. So little things happen. Just have a look at this one.
Take this as a low-level incident that can easily happen. If you saw episode 65, you would have seen how difficult med mooring can be in some places. With less than a boat's length across the fairway, I had to be helped into the berth in Bodrum.
Thank you.
Well, Dick had the added problem of a boat next door with a long bowsprit, so he elected to go out to port and then turn around.
I didn't realise how restricted it was here, so I won't do that. I'll go out astern.
Yeah.
But space was limited and other boats were moving, so he elected to go out backwards, which Skymark can do a lot better than Fair Isle.
These anchor lines are so shallow, aren't they?
Yeah. No, we scraped along them to try and when we got in.
Yeah.
With a stiff breeze blowing and very limited space, the extra long and extremely shallow chain of the last boat snagged us.
Well, caught him. Watch the bow, watch the bow. Save the bow, you may need to be the other side for the bow.
So here's some homework for someone. 22 tonnes, moving at about 3 knots, and I think the chain deflected about 3 feet, so a decelerationing that length. That's quite a bit of force, I think.
That's dropping away.
I think it's off.
I think that's off, yeah.
No harm done for us, but if that had been a spade rudder, well, what do you guys think? We had a lovely day sailing on Skymark. There's no question she sails really well. But there is one thing personally that I have reservations on, in-mast furling.
So it looks lovely, that push button sailing coming out, no rounding up, mainsail comes straight out. So everyone loves the idea of it, but a lot of people, including me, I must admit, have sort of run shy of it because of all the, it might get stuck, you can't put it away.
Yeah, obviously the big press that in-mast furling gets, or the negative press that in-mast furling gets, is the propensity for it to get stuck in the mast. And, I have to be honest, once I got it sorted and found my way through it a few times, I didn't have a problem at all. I think there's things that you can do to improve how it's going to work for you, and I particularly think using some of the modern cloths that are a lot thinner and don't stretch as opposed to Dacron. I think that does give you a big benefit, because it's the bagging and the folds, if you put the sail away like that create the problem. But I sailed Moonshadow with an in-mast furling system for 150,000 miles without a single problem. I had crew sometimes on the boat that, if you like, didn't follow the rules, because the issue is the tension.
Yeah,
you've
got a way around that, you're saying. So what's your method?
Yeah, and so you try and explain to one person tension and another person tension, and what does it mean? So I kind of felt that I had to find a fail-safe. So what I now do is I tell everybody, release 2 foot of the out haul, furl the sail will bring it, the mandrel will bring it under tension, and then it won't take it any further, and then release another 2 foot and furl the sail. And by doing that, you absolutely certainly can avoid ever getting a bag in the mast.
Yeah.
It's if you furl it away loose, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
And then it's if you furl it away loose and then put it under too much tension when you try and pull it out, because then it kind of goes out of shape in the in the mast cavity. Generally, when you're sailing with furling headsails, what you're going to do is you're going to put maybe a foot or 2 foot of the sail away. But if you've got slab, you can't put that same equal away, so you can wind up putting the boat out of balance. Whereas within mast, you put 2 foot of the genoa away, you put 2 foot of the main away, and you can keep the boat perfectly in balance.
Yeah, and you're more likely to reef when you need to reef, which is early.
Which is a massive thing.
Yeah.
It's a massive thing to just go, I'm not sure, put a foot away. Hang on, put another 2 foot away. And I decry anybody to tell me. Everybody knows, if in doubt, put a reef in. But we all hang on, don't we?
Absolutely.
We all hang on and think, oh no, it will probably start dropping back in a minute. Yeah. Of course, then it doesn't, and now you're a little bit over canvassed. But it's all good fun.
One of the things about having a heavily built boat is that you need the sail area to drive it. Kraken does that by having a high mast with a big genoa. Fair Isle is a true cutter, so the mast is further back and shorter. With the addition of a bowsprit, it means we've got 2 small foresails and a smaller main, so that's all easy to handle short-handed without any extra power.
All these things are really just a personal choice about how you want to sail, how you want to run your boat, how much complexity and expense you can stand. So let's go back to Filip and talk about one thing that we all want: strength.
You're building, for the want of a better term, a blue water boat, because it's misused, that term, we know, but it's a passage-making, ocean-going boat. And I know that they're basically, a lot of boats now are calling themselves Category A boats, and
Quite easy to satisfy that.
And arguably really shouldn't be. So this is a Category A boat. And
of course.
What are the things that you've done to make it that way, other than the keel, which, as you say, can't fall off? It's zero keel, zero boats. What else about the boat is there to make it strong, to make it a passage-making seaworthy boat?
Well, obviously it is a Category A, CE. We followed all of the RCD and the ISO standards, etc. But they are not a defining factor for the boat. Whereas a lot of other boats take the rule book and look at it and say we have to design to that.
Because Category A just means force 8, doesn't it?
Yes.
Force 8, and I can't remember how much.
Force 8, third average height of 4 meters.
4 meter wave. So
I think let's check that later. I want to get shot down, but it's about
it's
that.
Not much. It's
Yes.
what, it's fairly heavy weather, but it's not a boat breaking weather.
No, exactly. And here's the thing: when CE originally established the categories way back, I think 90s, they called Category Ocean. And that stuck, and that was a mistake, because now you have boats which are called ocean-going boats, and the manufacturers will market the hell out of it. And I think 2016 they dropped the naming, so it's only A, B, C, D, E. I think now there's no ocean, offshore, coastal, inshore. They've dropped the naming because they realize that it gives a false sense of security, if anything else, for those 2 reasons. But it's stuck. It's very, very good for the Benettos to, forget that it's not actually ocean.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are the things the other things that apart from the keel that you've put into this boat to make it just safer and more seaworthy and more comfortable on the sea?
Those things really fall into 2 categories. And the first one, and the one where, let's say, clear engineering is mostly a concern. All the builders are taking the CE regulations as a definitive guide to what you have to have and nothing more.
Yes.
Because
if they do more, it costs more money,
exactly.
and then the bottom line isn't as
and
good.
they don't achieve much more in their own eyes, because they know the market, they know their client, they know the client's going to go from cost to Bodrum and Bodrum to cost.
Yes. And that's okay, because if that is their client, that's okay. But for the discerning, or for the prospective ocean-going like us, we want to sail around the world. You look at it and think, well, can I do it in that boat? You probably could, but
you could. So we take the same rule book. We have to, of course, pass it.
Yes.
And then, especially in the calculations, the ISO 12215 is the structural section of the ISO rules. And obviously, all of the calculations that we have to comply with have a CF, a safety factor. We go beyond, because all of the calculations have a built-in safety factor, and therefore, when you calculate your panel sizes, thicknesses, etc., you should achieve a CF of 1, which is 100% conformity with the rule. We usually sit about 1.2, so 20% higher. That's our average. There are some which we go way above.
So let's talk a little bit about the layup then, because that's one of the things that's happened, isn't it? Fiberglass in the old days, for the old boats, which is sort of what this in a way is based on, was really, really thick, because they over-engineered. They didn't really know the strength of fiberglass in those days. You keep going, it's really thick. So now you're using much stronger material. It's not just chop mat,
yes, CSM chop strand mat.
Yes, so now you're using much stronger materials, and because of that, a lot of producers are saying, well, we can make it with the same strength, a lot thinner. So you're ending up with very thin boats. What are you doing?
Well, we're not doing 50 millimeters chop strand mats. We're doing 30 millimeters engineered. Yeah. So if you were to take a boat of, let's say, our perceived strength of a Kraken and build it in methods from the 70s, it would be this thick. Yeah. Basically, back in the old days, fiberglass was fiberglass. You had chop strand mat, and that was pretty much it. Yeah. Now there is a lot of different fabrics. So you have double bias, you have biaxials, like super simple stuff. I'm wearing a shirt, and this button is working that way. So if I want to increase the strength of that, I'm going to put fibers which go across.
Yeah.
Now, if I and I don't need to have fibers which go vertically because they do nothing for me here.
No.
So
People who know about sail making will know exactly the same thing. How you do
exactly, and that's why.
a radial cut sail.
A radial cut, because that's how the loads distribute. So it comes in on the clew, the head.
So you're doing a similar thing to a radial cut sail. That's clever. So with the way you're laying up the hull.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
okay, that's explained.
The first step is you have to know where your loads are coming from. You have to know your high impact points, your stress concentration points, and then you engineer. That's the big word. Back in the days, the big fake holes were not engineered per se. Like a hole has to be fake. Let's build it strong because and it's uniformly strong.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be.
No.
You need to be strong everywhere, of course, but it needs to be extra strong where it counts.
So when you've done your calculations for that, and unlike some of the yachts that then have done it, how strong does it need to be, and make it just strong enough where it will be very, very thin to do that. You've made it thicker than that. Why is that? Why have you built in that extra?
Well, this is the peace of mind, of course, first. The second one, it's important for us and it's beneficial for us to be slightly heavier because we want that, let's say, for lack of a better, a planted feeling. Yeah. And the third one is, there is strong enough and there is strong. There is a differentiation there.
Yeah. What about impacts? Because people that would say, be proponents of saying having an aluminium boat would say, well, it's quite thin, but it's quite ductile. You bang it on something, it's probably going to dent. It's probably not going to rip. Whereas you bang a normal production boat into that, you probably have a big gashing hole in the side of your boat because it hasn't got that sort of strength to hitting something solid. What would happen to this?
On our boats, we do fiberglass and foam sandwich on top sides, but below the waterline, it's solid glass. And it's overstated, and it's specifically overstated so that should you hit something, you're going to be fine. Yeah. Also,
but I'm talking about the ductility of this because people have the idea that fiberglass is very rigid, and you hit it and it's just going to crack and break, and unlike a steel or an aluminium boat, which is liable to maybe just bend and go in. What would this do? Do the modern fibers do anything for you in that regard?
While let's not kid ourselves, the deflection of fiberglass is not like aluminium. It doesn't have to be. Because we have capacity for deflection, which is enough. And the second one is the new modern resins and the modern fibers, and especially, this is the big one, when you lay the fiber orientation in how you perceive the impacts to happen, how you perceive the loads to come, the fiber will be able to deflect, and it will be able to deflect loads.
Other things in the cockpit, you've got a fairly big cockpit for a centre cockpit boat. Yes. I mean, if you compare it to ours, our Hans Christian, the cockpit is, I don't know, probably a quarter of the size. And part of that, the reason, it's small for a boat like that is that very reason. You get swamped. You're unlikely with a centre cockpit to get too much, but you get pooped by the way. You don't want to have that enormous amount of water in. Is there anything you can do to mitigate that?
Yes, massive drains.
Yeah.
We've got the non-removable windshield on the front, and that should take a lot of the water capacity coming in from the front out of the equation. The bimini, which is non-removable, and you wouldn't take it off, also tries to mitigate as much as possible. Now, while the cockpit is big, you'll see that just on the sides, it is lower. And we do that, we cut away the combing on the sides to let the top part of the water escape as soon as possible. In the end, we still have 2.1 cubic meters of water that we can fill, and therefore we have 3 massive drains.
Yeah.
And
so how quick will they get that water
8.6 seconds.
Wow, okay.
Here's a man who knows his figures. Now, I was going to put a whole section on here from distant shores. Paul and Cheryl are going to do an interview with us, but this video is already getting really long, and I don't want to compress that interview down because it's going to be really interesting. And it's relevant to this because they started off with a long-keeled boat and then switched to Southerlies, which are obviously very shallow-keeled, twin rudders, and they're having a boat built in aluminium now along the similar lines in the Netherlands, so that's going to be really interesting. So do watch out for that. I need to thank Dick as well and his team for having us on board. It's not easy while he's trying to commission a boat, having us poking around, and he never knows what we're going to say about his boats. Luckily, Kraken boats are fantastic, so he's fine there. So as ever, thanks for watching. Do like, subscribe, and become a patron. You know you want to.